Have you ever been bound by a contract before? Perhaps your first contract was your first job in order to make some more, money. If you can identify something that you are bound to, then you can somewhat relate to the Lord of Geo. He is also known as the God of Contracts, but by the end of our quest in Liyue, he appears to have loosened his grip on this ideal. Today, let's dive into the rock-solid mind of Zhongli and discover the real reason for why he gave up his gnosis so easily. This is a little psychology in Teyvat. Let's briefly go over Zhonglis motives throughout the main story quest. The Traveler is introduced to Zhongli through Child in Act 2 after meeting each of the Adepti and informing them of Rex Lapis' assassination. Being a consultant to the Wangsheng funeral parlor, Zhongli is tasked with performing the funeral processions for the Geo Archon himself, as is the respectable tradition in Liyue. We travel with him to collect all of the materials around Liyue, which includes commissioning kites, collecting jade, creating 3 kinds of perfumes, gathering some incense, and collecting the cleansing bell from Madame Ping. I do think it's a nice touch that Zhongli says that he has other business to attend to instead of accompanying the Traveler to see Madame Ping. This is done specifically because Madame Ping likely knows of Zhongli's true identity, and at this point in the story, we're not supposed to know that. Yeah, we did a lot of busy work here. I really hope the Primogems were worth it. Anyways, after the battle with Child and Oziel, it is revealed that Zhongli was the Geo Archon all along, and that he had orchestrated his own assassination in order to test Liyue to determine if the nation, alongside the Adepti, could actually sustain themselves and deal with the threats without the help of the Geo Archon. This was the contract between himself and the Tsaritsa, and Child's involvement, unbeknownst to him, was all part of Signor's plan to uphold the contract in exchange for Zhongli's gnosis, the Rook. I should mention here that it is tempting, as it was for Paimon, to wonder why Zhongli would make a contract with the Tsaritsa, who is the leader of the Fatui, who are obviously an evil organization in the world of Teyvat, right?
Yeah, you don't think you went a little bit too far with that whole fake death thing? Everyone was preparing the ceremony for you, and splat! This big dragon falls out of the sky, and all of Liyue goes into an uproar. Talk about a disaster.
As of version 2.3, it can be very easy to label the Fatui as a force of opposition, because in every instance of the game, they have presented themselves to the Traveler as their enemy. And yes, the Harbingers that we've encountered so far have all overtly exposed their methods of getting what they want by any means necessary. A very villainous way of doing things. But let's take a look at the things from Zhongli's perspective in order to establish the context for which he gave up his gnosis. It's possible that by psychoanalyzing his relationship with obligation and contracts, we may find a possible reason for this change in behavior. Zhongli constantly talks about being with old friends, and if we remember the state of the Archons at present, they have become incredibly fragmented. We learn from Zhongli that he regularly hosted what I can only assume were meeting parties for the Archons to gather, likely to update and discuss current events. Venti briefly talks about these meetings as well, and in Zhao's quest, we learn that he would listen to Venti's music to calm his mind, whenever Venti traveled from Mondstadt to Liyue for these said meetings. In fact, at one point, it is Venti's music that actually saved Zhao from falling prey to the evil aura, like the rest of his Yaksha brethren. But that's for another video. Back to Zhongli, he must have been very connected to the original Archons. We know that at present only Zhongli and Venti remain from the original 7, and that these parties no longer happen as Zhongli constantly reminisces about his old friends from his idle animation dialogues.
Osmanthus wine tastes the same as I remember. But where are those who share the memory?
I would wager that they stopped once a few of the original 7 were replaced, once a few of Zhongli's oldest friends and compatriots were no longer alive. This would likely cause Zhongli to contemplate his own existence as an Archon, about his role, and about his duty. Zhongli's psychology is very much connected to the concept of duty and obligation. In order to understand this, we need to get into the heads of the Archons themselves. What does it feel like to be an Archon on Teyvat? More than 2,000 years ago, the Archon War raged across the land. Think of it like a game of Fortnite, where all of the gods inhabiting Teyvat are told that 7 thrones have opened in Celestia. One by one, specific gods claim the title of Archon in each region, presumably by either defeating, sealing away, or allying with other gods, like in the case of Rex Lapis versus Havria, Ozile, and Marchosius, respectively. The 7 are then presumably given the duty of guiding humanity towards the heavenly principles. So, this is where Zhongli and the rest of the Archons' duty begins. At present, Zhongli states that he has been the Geo-Archon for around 3,700 years, until one day he overhears some fishermen talking and finishing up for the night as their duty is complete. This prompts Zhongli to consider if his duty has been complete, or if he should continue into what would appear to be perpetuity. The thing about obligation is that if there is no agreed completion date, like a contract, then ultimately there is no ending, and this is what Zhongli perhaps begins to fear. So, let's talk about the psychology of obligation, which is what you came here for, shall we? According to the psychologist Michael Tomasello from Duke University in the United States, obligation is not necessarily a psychological concept, but it is quite related to many psychological phenomenon. To make a long story short, he concludes that obligation is a kind of motivation, but that it has a subjectively coercive quality to it. Using the carrot and the stick imagery, most motivations are the carrot, whereas obligations are more like the stick, meaning that most motivations are focused on getting something specific that one is receiving. For example, I want to pull Zhongli, so I am motivated to get Zhongli, the character. But obligation is a kind of motivation that acts like an engine that then leads to something, like getting the character Zhongli. I want Zhongli. I am obligated to get Primogems, which then allows me to get Zhongli. Now the emphasis is not on pulling Zhongli, but on the obligation of obtaining Primogems first. Obligation can evolutionarily come from a shared sense of intentionality, and is expressed through collaboration. We feel obligated to do things for others because we morally feel the weight of reciprocity or fairness. Obligation can be traced all the way back to when humans first needed to cooperate with one another in order to survive, which would undoubtedly form the basis of society. It allows us to collaborate and do things that we may not want to do ourselves, but because it may cause someone else to do something for us, we do it anyways, regardless of our lack of enjoyment. This need for collaboration for a reward in the future actually overwhelms the need to feel good at the present, within certain circumstances. When you are working, you receive money, which has no inherent value of its own, but it is in itself a way of storing one's value to society for future usage. And this is achieved through the obligation of giving back to society. If we turn back to Zhongli again, his association with contracts is tied to the concept of obligation quite nicely. Being binded to a contract means that one is obligated to fulfill their contract or else suffer equal consequences. It builds on top of the concept of trust by adding an extra incentive of punishment, which is essential for any society to exist, but also breeds an extra layer of benefit as people will be more willing to do things that they do not necessarily enjoy. Zhongli likely chose this ideal because of his many obligations to his fellow gods during the Archon War, and simply applied this concept to the construction of his nation, that would prosper as we see it has, with Liyue being possibly the most prosperous nation in Teyvat, and of course gives us another clue as to what the heavenly principles actually are, because we can conclude that these principles require a sense of reciprocity. But this still leaves us with why Zhongli made the deal with the Tsaritsa in the first place. Why would he help an obviously evil organization? Just look at what they did in Inazuma, and a nation that appears to have abandoned the heavenly principles altogether. I propose a theory that this can be explained through Zhongli's own mental erosion, where he is experiencing a loss of obligation. There's a lot in Genshin's lore that points to the idea that by sustaining the heavenly principles, one will inevitably succumb to erosion. This could be why so many gods have already fallen to this debilitating ailment. In fact, it's possible that all of the old Archons succumb to erosion, making way for the new Archons that are not so keen on protecting these heavenly principles like their predecessors were. Due to Zhongli's acknowledging the erosion of his friends like Ajdaha, I believe Zhongli may be giving up his gnosis to protect himself from the erosion by parting with his obligation to contracts and developing a new obligation for himself, to live amongst the humans. This loss of feeling obligated, I believe, can be explained by Zhongli's reverence for trust. For one, the relationships that Zhongli had developed each contained a strong trust that was beginning to fade. I believe that Zhongli became the god of contracts because of the strong relationships he made along the way to becoming an Archon, and he interpreted these relationships as similar to contracts. As his fellow Archons began to disappear, his commitment to his own contracts would begin to start degrading as well. There's also the notion that Zhongli, after 3,700 years, was beginning to recognize that he was following his contract with Celestia for the sake of contracts themselves. This is an example of where a system becomes more important than what the system was meant to achieve. He realized that he no longer believed in the contract that he had pledged his existence to protect, and thus, I believe, contacted the Tsaritsa first to provide him with a way out so that he could dodge the curse of erosion like his brethren before him. And after recognizing these things, Zhongli has concluded that he is no longer necessary for fostering human development. He believes that the next step in his duty, and the final step, depending on how you look at it, is to let Liyue go out of his control and allow it to stand on its own 2 feet. He has done all he can and taught his people all he needs to, and now, finally, his duty, like the fisherman, has come to an end. But of course, what do you think? Is Zhongli in cahoots with the Tsaritsa and secretly an evil conspirator? Or is he the one actually using the Tsaritsa himself to achieve his own goals? Are the newer Archons against the heavenly principles more so than their predecessors, like I was? And will this global movement away from the heavenly principles cause a Conria-like incident to span all of Teyvat as a result of all the Archons, this time around, rebelling against Celestia? If there is a character in Genshin Impact that you think would be worth psychoanalyzing, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to look at the possibilities. And if you have your own thoughts about Zhongli's possible motivations, jot them down in the discussion as well. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. By liking the video and subscribing to the channel, you'll be actively telling YouTube that these psychoanalyses videos are worth watching, and help me immensely in growing a community that focuses on the psychology of these characters that we love so much. And follow me on Twitter to know when I post and read some Genshin memes along the way. And thank you for visiting A Little Psychology in Teyvat. Did anyone else find it intentional that when Zhongli was faking his death, he ended up working at a funeral parlor? At least he still has a sense of humor, right?
Hey, my name's Pino. That's not true. Stupid question. Why would you ask that? Hey, we're being unchild. Mark my words. Vengeance will be mine. Paimon's all out of brain juice again.